How's it going, ladies and Bruce's on Bobby Sixkilla? Welcome back to the Divine Deception. Now, we do not have the keys we need to continue on with Val's or Mercury's path at this stage, which is unfortunate because I was enjoying those. I think this is the last one in Mercury's path anyway, but... So, I guess we need to pick a new path, so I'm thinking we'll go with the Investigator because that seemed pretty good and we got a bronze key for it, so... Let's jump into that, shall we? Until we can unlock one of the next ones. Rogue or Noir? Man, that was a high building. Highest in Panthea, probably. Whenever I saw a massive skyscraper like this one question always entered my mind. Do they really need all that space? It always feels to me there's no way that a business actually needs to fill up all of that space. Well, I was no business manager, and I was bad at conceptualizing big things, so it was probably justified. And if it was justified for any company, it'd definitely be Olimpo. With how many pies they had on their fingers in, it's no wonder that they needed a lot of space to house their workers. What didn't feel necessary was how much space they took up with this urban area in Panthea. How much of this space was empty space, reserved for aesthetics. Well, it made the area stand out at any rate. Anyways, time to enter the building. I've been in this lobby before, but it still took a moment to take in the area. The place had a wide receptionist area, restrooms, multiple waiting areas, and even a breakfast cafeteria in-house. Anything you could reasonably want. Only the best for Olimpo, I suppose. I could respect that on some level. I approached the receptionist. Greetings, I'm Laverna, the detective. It is my understanding that your business is in need of my services. Worry not, I'll be happy to dispense my aid however necessary. A chance to pursue the truth is the only payment I require. Though of course a healthy check certainly would not dull my spirits. Regardless, be sure to inform your masters of my arrival. In the meantime, I shall begin lounging in one of your plentiful waiting areas. No need to direct me with one. I'm familiar with this floor's layout. That's such a weird way of talking. Why does she talk like that? And just like that, I turned away and made my way to the waiting area. There was no need to actually have her respond. I'd leave a more striking impression on her this way. So I circled the reception desk and walked over to the waiting area. I expected the wait to be dull. No, perhaps dull was the wrong word. Uneventful. One that would let me collect my thoughts, perhaps waste some time on my phone. But instead the waiting room was occupied by two familiar faces. Lav! You're kidding. I held similar sentiments to Seth. What were the odds? Still, Baldera rushed over to me and gave me a hug, and I felt compelled to reciprocate. Okay, that guy is obviously, like, we learned that he's in the pocket of the gangs, but there's no way that Baldera is, right? No way. Honestly, maybe it wasn't that big a coincidence to run into each other. There was a lot of overlap between private investigators and police, after all. Last time we'd met was investigating the murders at Governor Ija's private gala. Unfortunately, that ended up in a dead end. Despite our best efforts, we were never able to find any evidence leading back to the killer. Ultimately, while there was still an investigation, the unknown third party had come and gone without leaving any trace we could find. The unexpected second body didn't end up giving us any hints. Later forensic evidence did reveal a few interesting details about the case. Apparently, when we found the body, he had been dead for several hours. He had originally been killed with a blow to the back of the head around the time that the gala was starting up and people were still making their way in. Forensic scientists were able to tell that, as expected, the bell wasn't the murder weapon. However, the real murder weapon was unable to be located. Most curious was the fact that Maximilian Collins wasn't actually on the list, in the invite list to Ija's gala, despite the decent amount of clout he possessed. That raised the question of what he was even doing there. Well, as the nephew of the late Veronica Collins, he had some connection, so perhaps he meant to meet or confront a guest of the gala. Veronica Collins, while alive, was one of the few non-family members known to be close with Odin Deismer, the Miracle Man. It felt likely that somehow this connection was what got Maximilian killed. But while correlation seemed apparent, the exact causation completely eluded us. Ultimately, there was no forensic pieces of murder evidence that Maximilian's case led to. The whole double murders were still under investigation without much hope of being solved without a new breakthrough. That was disappointing, but life and crimes waited for nobody. So when I was contacted to help investigate a case of corporate theft at the Olimpo Corporation, naturally I jumped at the chance to help out. What are you doing here? For the same reason you're here, I presume. The Deismers hit you up too? I must have left an impression on them during our last encounter. Oh, I don't doubt that much. Seth, eccentricity appeals to eccentrics. Eccentric? Is that how you see yourself? People are multifaceted. Trying to condense an existence with a singular adjective. I broke into a coughing fit. God, my throat was hoarse. Luckily, there was a water cooler nearby. Maybe it's because you talk so long-windedly. I walk over and pour myself a cup. You okay there, Lev, darling? Oh, I'm fine. My throat must be a touch strained from karaoke last night. You went karaoke? Jealous? Why didn't you give me a call? I don't take it as a slight, Baldera. I was performing karaoke solo. Wait, so you went to a karaoke bar by yourself? Indeed. Spectacular listening comprehension, Seth. You see, if you go by yourself, you don't have to waste your time listening to others, and instead, you can spend the entire time singing yourself. Pretty brilliant, no? If you say so. Seth had been holding his tongue more often as of late. Anyway, I'm surprised at just the two of you joining me this fine day. I would expect at the very least Ariane to be in your steed. No, I'm afraid it's just us today. And thank God for that. Seth. What? I'm just saying how it is. I do work much better when I don't have that cyborg breathing down my neck. Ariane is perfectly nice. She just seems off-putting because she's not, you know, the best with social cues and all. I'm sure that's true. Totally, I just don't know her well enough. So that you can get to know her better through investigations. Yeah, no, see, I think that's the problem. I kind of doubt I'm going to get anywhere with her during investigations. Baldera turned to me, clearly wanting to move on. Unfortunately, Ariane couldn't swing by here. We're pulled a little thin at the moment. Just shooting straight with you, a possible robbery of personal property isn't really that big of a deal. I mean, it's a case for Olimpo, a pretty big and powerful group, but we're supposed to not factor in things like that. And when you consider that on the other side of town, there's a recent assault case that Pandora was the first on the scene to. Ariane thought it would be smart to head over there instead of here. Probably the right choice from Ariane then. I assume you were here for the theft case thing. Why else would I be in a building like this, if not for business? Just making sure. I walked over and took a seat next to the windows. Cool, so it looks like we're going to be working together again. Fun. Yeah, fun. Why did Olimpo contact a private investigator when we haven't even been able to take a look around? Do they think that little of us? It's a mere formality, I'm sure, Seth. This is Olimpo we're speaking of. They like to be thorough. I guess. My vision wandered. I ended up looking out the window aimlessly. Around the side of the building was a fairly extensive water feature. It connected right next to the wall. It had several little fountain things. I previously derided the space that this place took out as excessive, and that was likely an accurate assessment of the facts, but it was a little hard to stay angry at that when looking at a nice installation like this. Maybe dismissing it was as useless was small-minded. Perhaps the effect it had on morale was worthwhile in itself. What do you think, Lav? I turned back to those two. Oh, my apologies. Were you labouring under the misunderstanding that I was paying attention to you for the last minute? To be honest, I tuned out a decent bit ago. Seth had to rein in a chuckle, while Baldera put on a pouty face. Really, Lav? You gonna do me like that? Like, it's a matter of efficiency. There is but so much idle chitter-chatter I can intake before my mind swaps from investigative mode to a more casual one. A casual one, mind you, which has no place in an investigation. My tuning out was a deliberate attempt to prevent that occurrence. Well, that's a new one. This exchange was likely to continue for quite a bit. However, it was at this moment that we had a visitor who clearly didn't spend much time in waiting lounges. Art had entered the room. He was quite well dressed. His outfit was nearly indistinguishable from what he wore at the gala. I didn't know if that spoke to how fancy he dressed at work or how casually dressed at the gala, but either way it was impressive. Regardless, it was an undeniable fact that the outfit suited him. If I didn't know any better, I'd even consider him quite handsome. Apologies on keeping you waiting. Running a company like Olimpo is a taxing endeavour, I'm sure you can imagine. When I heard you'd arrived, I made sure to come down and personally greet you, just as soon as I'd finished the matter that was at hand. I'd like to thank you for... Art had gotten this far into his explanation before he stopped to look at me. He probably was aware that I was in the room, but he must have wrote me off as just some other visitor, one of the likely dozen that went in and out of the room every day. To me, this said that I hadn't left a strong enough impression during our meeting at the gala. I couldn't tell if that was good or bad. Regardless, he recognised me now, and with that recognition came a flare of annoyance. You. What exact business do you have here? Well, let me turn the question on you, to test your aptitude for this profession. I'm a world-class detective, and a busy one at that. Is there anything to your knowledge that may have summoned me to this room? Art sighed heavily. I assume you're referencing the theft. Aha! Perhaps we should switch jobs. Perhaps not. To rephrase my question, why are you here for the theft investigation? You doubt my bona fides? My, this is surprising. I find that oddly insulting. Well, I have a website I can direct you to if you wish. It lists my past achievements quite plainly. Peruse that and you'll see that I'm more than appropriate here. No, I'd prefer not to. Again, it's not the qualifications which give me pause, it's the fact that you were not hired for this job. Wait, Lev, you weren't? Are you gotta be kidding me? Naturally I was hired. I can assure you that you weren't. I can assure you that she was. Odin? Art jumped up, startled. Fair enough. I barely noticed Odin slink his way into the room with a mischievous smile on his face. For such an imposing figure, he sure knew how to step silently. Ah, you're getting sloppy, Art. Odin smacked him in the back of the head. He had a friendly face, but the sound of the impact made it sound like it hurt. It was a time that I wasn't able to get the jump on you like this. What are you doing here, Odin? I was getting hungry. I decided it was time for a meal, so I was leaving for a nearby restaurant. I knew you didn't want anybody on the restricted floor to leave, well, with the whole incident and whatnot, but I assume that I'm exempt from suspicion in this whole affair. Of course you are. And what exactly makes that the case? I decided to interject. An axiom of investigation, those eager to exit a crime scene are oft the cause of said crime scene in the first place. Art shot me an incredibly dirty look. However, Odin began to laugh. How true. There is no good reason that I should be exempt from suspicion. It is pleasing to see one amongst you has the stones to speak their mind. See, this is why I hired you. Wait, Odin, you hired her? Of course I did. I couldn't exactly trust the police with a job like this. And the fact that you did proves that you're still too naive to be without my supervision. After the job she did in the gala, I thought it'd be fun to invite Miss Laverna here. I thought she'd prove useful. Or failing that, entertaining. I shall aim to do both. Prioritize useful, please. Seriously? Her? Some unknown private investigator? We're gonna let her simply waltz around the vault of this company? Oh, don't be such a dullard, Art. Honestly, it's such a nuisance that you end up being the least charismatic child. I expected that statement to flare Art up. Instead, he seemed to deflate. Then he gritted his teeth and turned to me. Fine. If my father has already purchased your services, it would be foolish not to make the most of you while you're here. I'll do my best to perform above your expectations. That won't be difficult. Excellent, excellent. Glad to see that this has sorted itself out. Well, my hunger hasn't gone away. I expect this matter to be settled by the time I return, Art. Of course, Odin. Fantastic. And with no other remarks, Odin turned around and exited the scene. He conveniently dodged the question I raised about him being a suspect, but now wasn't the time to push my luck. Besides, he wasn't the thief. Well then, it appears you three will have to suffice. Don't worry, I can attest to the quality of Baldera and Seth. They make for excellent grunt workers, perfectly suited for aiding my investigations. Good to hear. Well, I suppose we should just get a move on. And like that, Art also turned and began to leave the room. With a single wave of his arm, he gestured for us to follow him. The four of us made our way back to around the reception's desk, this time walking to the other side of it. Further beyond the desk was a hallway which led to a set of sleek marble elevators. Art pressed a button and without a moment's hesitation, the left door opened up. Ladies first. Art gestured into the elevator. Baldera and I entered, followed by Seth and Art taking up the rear. The elevator had a whole tower of buttons. Art took out a white and gold keycard and placed it on a sensor in the elevator. And then he pressed a button with a star indicator next to it. A restricted floor, it seems. A few seconds later, the doors opened up and we found ourselves on a new, pristine floor. Instantly, the fancy flooring gave off the indication that this was a place for the elite. Well, I could already guessed that much. Before we could go anywhere, however, we had to deal with security. Is this necessary? Wow. It's like that time I went to the airport. Indeed, the scene was akin to airport security. A large metal detector took up the center of the hallway. To the right of the metal desk was a metal desk that slid across either side of it. And to the left, a tough-looking security guard stood motionless. This, Art waved his arms at the obvious display before us, is the restricted floor security. The thing meant to try and stop incidents like this from happening. And this here is Zeth. Say hi, Zeth. Hi. Hi, Zeth. How you doing on this fine day? Not particularly well. Aw. And why's that? A theft happened on my watch. Oh yeah, that's got a bit of damper in his step. Oh hey, cheer up. Things will get better. To this, Zeth gave a small nod. Whenever anybody enters or leaves the floor, they have to go through the metal detector. Any metal objects on them, or any personal belongings, they are put on the desk and inspected by Zeth. Well, I'll give you this, it's certainly thorough. Thoroughness is a motto of Olimpo. A motto? How many mottos do you have at Olimpo? And thoroughness isn't really a motto, it's mere one-word value. If Art had heard a single word I said, he didn't let on. But, Is this really necessary? Seems like a lot to just have it work. I assure you that it's more than necessary. Given what's on this floor, we need to take such precautions. Some of the decorations on this floor, especially in my office and the meeting rooms, are worth enough for some to consider stealing. More important, of course, is all the information and data up here that is central to our business. At Olimpo's level, corporate espionage is a major concern, which is why we're taking the current situation so seriously. So company property must be protected, not to mention company personnel. Now, who even has access to this floor is already strictly monitored. Still, you can never tell what will be too much for somebody. I fear the day when some vengeful employee will try to take a stab at me or something else on this floor. Vengeful employees, huh? Would you happen to know of anything that you've done which would engender such strong feelings? Any specific employees that would come to mind? Of course, I simply ask because I feel it may be a potential motive for the current caper we find ourselves in the midst of. Given the nature of the case, I very much doubt revenge is a catalyst. Can we just keep moving, please? On Seth's behest, we made our way forwards. Luckily, we didn't have to be subjected to the usual scrutiny of the security measures. Instead, we could walk right ahead, down the hallway, through the restricted floor. Could you be a doll and give us a bit of a rundown about what's on this floor? Might be useful for our investigation. Certainly. As you can see, there are a number of important rooms around here. The doors that we're passing? The ones on the left house important paper records, business deals, contracts, that sort of thing. The ones on the right house Olimpo servers. Important doors indeed. Not to this case. They're so important that the doors to these rooms have an added layer of security. You need to scan a keycard to open them. The keycards require the highest level of clearance and also log all entries on a highly encrypted third-party server. They haven't been accessed today. Good to get that out of the way then. To the right are a number of offices of our higher level members. However, our destination is to the left. We followed them down the winding hallway. Here to the left and right are some high-end meeting rooms. Further down the hallway are two doors to rather large offices with glass walls. The office on the left had shutter blinds all the way down. The office on the right had their blinds at the top. It was quite messy with documents strewn all about. At present, a certain pink-haired employee was typing something in a laptop. The room to the left is my office and the one to the right is my brother's. And further down the hallway is the restrooms if that becomes an issue. I'm surprised the CEO of this company has the same office as the chief director. Not my idea. Odin made it that way so Polly wouldn't throw a fit. And Polly liked that we'd be right across from each other. He soon soured that idea when he realised that it let me see just how often he wasn't working. If Polly really cared about that, why didn't he have his blinds down like you, Art? I kept that thought to myself. Art opened the office to the left and ushered us in. Even though it had a similar architecture to the other office, there was clearly a world of difference. Everything was nice and orderly, clean, in its proper place. The contrast, and its meaning, couldn't be more on the nose. Art walked over to the other side of the desk and sat down in his chair. Valdera, Seth and I just stayed standing. Nice place you got here. Indeed, I appreciate the minimalism present. I too indulge in the philosophy my apartment contains no clutter whatsoever. This is only my office. I can assure you my penthouse apartment is quite lavishly decorated. However, such aesthetics would only serve to distract me during work time. We've already wasted far too much time on pleasantries. Let me cut to the chase. Yes, let's. Oh, Art did not like me. I swear I wasn't doing this on purpose. Okay then. Cutting to it. It is, on paper, a fairly simple case of company property being stolen. A laptop, to be specific. It was used for several important business transactions, and has a lot of valuable information on it. I know it was on this floor this morning. That is because I used it this morning. I then left it in a cabinet attached to the table in one of our meeting offices. I'll take you to said location momentarily. The important point is that many hours later when I tried to use the laptop again, it was completely missing. I've had this entire floor searched top to bottom, every nook and cranny, and the laptop has not shown up. These searches will continue, but at this point I can only assume that the laptop and the information on it has been stolen. I bet it's the one that we found in Odin's office in his house, out in the woods, that we couldn't access. If that information ends up in the hands of our business rivals, it will damage our prospects quite severely. Between the time I last used it and the time I discovered it missing, a total of 3 employees exited this floor. However, each went through the security procedure I have already explained, and all passed without any alerts. I've called the employees back and they are waiting in a nearby room. Your job is to ascertain which, if any, of these employees is responsible for the theft. If it is one of them, I would appreciate if you could make it clear how exactly they got the laptop past our security detail. If it is not one of them, then I would like the true culprit to be made clear, and for the location of the laptop to be revealed. Alright, seems simple enough. Really? Because, kinda seems a bit... Seth hesitated, realizing who he was standing in front of. Impossible? In a sense it is. However, that adds to the intrigue. Impossible crimes are the most interesting. At their heart is a contradiction, a false assumption, an illusion to the eye. These are the greatest truths to uncover. Does she always act like this? Yep. My sympathies. I'm familiar with how draining it can be to work with these types. There's a reason she's not actually a cop. And that reason is that I shan't be shackled. Well, should we get started then? The scene from which the laptop was stolen was the meeting room on the other side of the hall. You three can go look around there while I prepare things for you. Prepare things for us? I raised a slight eyebrow at that, but I've been poking the bear a bit too frequently. Indeed, I followed Seth and Baldera out the door and over to the meeting room. It looked quite nice. On the end of the room opposite the door, there were big wall-sized windows. On the wall next to the room was a big TV mounted on the walls, and below it was a big fancy cabinet with a number of drawers. It looked like they all slightly jutted out. Was that a thing with fancy cabinets? It seemed more annoying than anything else. On the other walls were a number of still-life photographs on predatory animals hung up. In the center of the room was a long, oval-shaped table with a dozen chairs sat by it. Lovely place, lovely little place. It's nice, I guess. Would you want to be the head of a big corporation like this, Lev? Why would God covet a crown of man? Well, that's a new one. Over in the corner of the room, there was a little trash bin. I decided to walk over and give it a little look. At the bottom of the bin was a discarded coffee cup. So what are we looking for? Beats me. I don't think we're going to find much of use. Ah, how limited your reach is. You got any bright ideas? Several. Oh, you mean in regards to this case? Seth just sighed. Meanwhile, I took a seat at the opposite end of the table. Well, we have to do something. Just then a familiar face walked in. Oh, Seth, was it? Yes, that's right. Nice to see you again. What are you doing here? I was instructed to enter and aid with the investigation. I was the one who conducted the security checks of the suspects who left. I thought I might be useful to have on hand when conducting the interviews. Oh, but don't worry about me not being at my post. Art thought of that. He's got another guard to take up my shift. Some sense in that, I guess. Interviewing the suspects, huh? On that note, I have an important question for you. Very leisurely, I kicked back and placed my feet on the table. What rules you out as a possible suspect? It appears to me the simplest answer to how the thief scaled the wall was if the wall was, in fact, the thief. Why can we trust you, Seth? There's a camera by the security station. It'll show that I was at my station the whole time. Tisk, tisk, tisk. A decent rebuttal, I must admit. However, you may not have been the active conspirator, but what say you an accomplice? What if you were working with the thief? That's not likely. Art had walked in the room, not dissimilar to how his father had earlier. Our security guards, above all other employees, are screened and trained by the highest scrutiny. I am certain that Zeth doesn't have a disloyal bone in his body. Thank you, sir. You can trust his account. I am only willing to consider suspecting him when all other avenues have been exhausted. And seeing as how you haven't yet interviewed any suspects, I suspect this is not yet the case. Well then, bring us the suspects. Art smiled. I'll do just that. Percy, get in here. Sure thing. In the room rushed a fairly young-looking office worker. Judging by his apparent pit stains, this whole being a suspect thing was weighing on him. He nervously drummed his fingers across a leather briefcase he held in his hands. Hi, I'm Percy. I guess I'm a suspect? Apologies for his hapless behaviour. No need. Percy, just calm down. Nothing bad is going to happen. We're just going to be asking some standard questions. I slammed my fist down onto the table. Tell us why you did it, Percy. Why'd you throw away your freedom? Why don't you want to see your mother anymore? Was it worth it? Was it worth it, Percy? Laverna, what the hell? Lav, go easy on the kid. He's clearly having a rough time of it. I sighed heavily. Wow, way to ruin my blitz confession strategy, you two. Now I have to do things the old-fashioned way. Out of curiosity, does that tactic ever work? To prove it wouldn't require testing it on every person on Earth. Percy, could you just tell us what you did? I don't know what to say. I needed some files that a colleague who's sick had left on their desk. Percy doesn't usually work on the restricted floor. His office is on one of the lower levels. Right, so I got permission to come up and went to my colleague's office. It took me a bit to find, but once I did, I just left and went back to work. When the laptop was discovered as stolen, I began looking into suspects. Percy here was still working at his desk. Numerous other co-workers can attest that he never went anywhere after returning. Anything suspicious about what he brought up or down? Both entering and exiting, he brought a suitcase, but I put it through the metal detector and checked it both times. It didn't trigger anything. I didn't see anything suspicious inside. Is it the same suitcase as the one you're holding right now, Percy? Sure, here you go. Percy held the suitcase out, and Seth began rummaging through it. Is that all the pertinent information? Indeed. To be honest, Percy is the one I suspect the least. However, I'm nothing if not thorough. One of your mottos? Indeed. Well, I got nothing in the suitcase. As far as I can see, Percy, you're free to go. For now. I put 2 fingers to my face and then moved them to his. Go and tell Herc to enter. Okay, Percy? Percy timidly nodded and then swiftly exited the room. It was only a couple of moments later when an older man, dressed similarly to the first, entered. Despite being at least in his 60s, I could tell he had a good bit of muscle on him. Hey y'all, nice to be here. Gentlemen, ladies. Herc gave a brief bow. Herc's testimony is going to be quite important. Treat it with as much scrutiny as you wish. Are you sure it's a good idea to say that in front of the suspect? Oh, I don't mind it none. I welcome a challenge. Bring it on. Got no secrets to hide. My life's an open book. Alright then, Herc, if that is your name. Mind telling us exactly what you did during the time frame when the laptop was stolen? Why, I was in this very room. Really? Of course, not the whole time. I think I entered a bit after Art left, but I spent a good bit of the day cooped up in here. Left once to use the restroom, then left again shortly after to get a nice refill on my morning cup of joe. I tell you, I could have sworn I only drank a sip of it. Next thing you know, it's empty. Really gotta cut back on the stuff. I think I might have a wee problem with it. I blame this one for that. Herc thumbed at Art. You shouldn't have put that cafe on the first floor. I strive to improve my employees' morale. So Herc was here when you went to check for the laptop. He was. So that narrows the time frame when the laptop could have been stolen a fair bit, don't you think? Say, when exactly did Percy come up to look for the documents? Unfortunately for him, midway through his search, Herc decided to use the restroom, robbing him of an alibi. What can I say, when nature calls? And Zeth, was there anything out of ordinary with Herc when he tried to go through the security detail? It was. Herc can't go through the metal detector without setting it off. Is that right? Yeah, dental work, I'm afraid. Real pain in the ass. Bothers me every time I come here for work. Luckily, me and Zeth here have worked out a workaround. And that is? Herc puts his body through the metal detector while keeping his head stuck out. And then he walks around it. Seriously? It's effective. So you're saying Herc's head isn't checked in the metal detector? Hey, if you want to accuse me of smuggling out a laptop in my mouth, by all means, be my guest. I didn't have a clever comeback to that. Any other questions? Yeah, I have one. What were you doing in this room in the first place? I thought this was a meeting room. What can I say? I like my space. This room's airy. The office, stuffy. Figure nobody's using it today. Might as well do my work in here. Which I may add is against company policy. Yo, got me, Chief. This will be the last day I do it. See to it that that is the case. While you're at it, go grab data for us. On it. Hold on a second. You don't get to dismiss our suspects. We dismiss them when we're good and ready. You are dismissed. With a half-cocked smile, Herc turned around and left the room. A bit of information about our next suspect. This is the only person who actually left the building during the time frame of the theft. This gives her ample opportunity. I'm catching a drift. So this is our prime suspect. Judge for yourself. And, as if it were timed out, just then was when a blonde woman wearing black clothes and sunglasses entered. Nice style. The woman walked further into the room and pulled out a chair, then sat down and crossed her legs. Well, you have me. I was called back from a pressing prior engagement, so this had better be worth it. And that engagement was... Is that pertinent for your investigation? It might be. Well, if it is, then I'll tell you. Up until that point, I'll keep it to myself. So you just waltzed out of the building in the middle of the day. I had clearance for it. Everything was totally standard. Dada, would you mind just walking us through your day? Not much to walk through. I came in on time, did my job at my actual office on this floor, left in the middle of the day, and later received a call that I had to return because some idiot thought it would be a good idea to steal a laptop in broad daylight. I assume she left after Herc's trips away from the room. Of course. Zeth, my man, you know what I'm after. Hit me up with those security deets. She passed the metal detector easily. Entering and exiting, she slid a book down the metal desk. Tangled Triasts? Or Trysts? Hardback edition. I like to keep up to date on the new releases in the literature world. Oh, romance? Mystery, actually. Although I'm beginning to fear it might not be a particularly good one. I did my due diligence. Flipped through the pages, made sure there wasn't anything else in the book. There wasn't. Well, there you have it. I couldn't have taken the laptop. And if you ask me, the laptop hasn't left the floor. It's just hidden somewhere that we haven't found yet. I didn't bring you in for the running commentary data. Then can I leave? I can't imagine there's anything else I could be used for. Yes, retreat to your cave. Instead of responding to that, Data simply stood up, turned around and walked out. Well, what do you make of it? You know, it certainly is a head-scratcher. Not really a clear answer present. If there was a clear answer, it would not have involved the police. I vastly prefer using our in-house security team whenever possible. Truly an impressive caper. If I didn't know better, I'd say the theft of this beauty was the work of the auto-larcenist. Well, let's get thinking. Is there any way that those three could have smuggled the laptop past security? I don't think so. Well, let's try putting our heads together on this one. I got off my seat and began to pace. Time to put my brain into action. Obviously I already knew how part of it happened, but I was completely in the dark on a bunch of details. And until I had explanations for those details, I didn't feel confident speaking up. Valdera sighed and looked to the floor. Man, it's a real bummer. Times like this I miss Issa. He would have known what to do. He was great with things like this. Hey, what did we say about this? We shouldn't even talk about him, it's not healthy. Seth looked more uncomfortable than usual. I looked over at the large window to the side. Below it was a rather large water feature. You know, from this height and perspective, it didn't look quite as impressive. I tried to open the window, however, as soon as I pushed it out, a loud noise began to blare through the room. Valdera and Seth both put their hands to their ears. Art, on the other hand, looked irritated and pulled out his phone. With a few taps of the screen, the noise died down. What in blazes was that? A facet of our security system. Although usually it just logs the event, and only set off the alarm because I set things to red alert mode ever since the theft. Whenever a window is opened, it passes by a sensor. See, it's right there. Art pointed, and sure enough, there was a discrete sensor at the side of the windowsill. That's probably how you know the windows weren't using this, right? Naturally. I looked closer at the sensor. At first glance, indeed, it looked like opening the window would trigger it. However, that wasn't technically true. The sensor was placed about half an inch above where the window would begin to slide open. Too thin for a laptop, sure, but still. Now I understood. Meanwhile, while looking at this, Valdera and Seth had been theorizing without me. What about Percy? I didn't like the look of that boy. What? Why didn't you like the look of him? Squirrely fellow, too nervous for his own good. Are we sure that suitcase didn't have some hidey hole for storing things? Maybe one laced with something to evade a metal detector. I looked over the suitcase myself and I didn't find anything like that. You looked over this suitcase? But remember, he went back down to his office on the lower floors a while ago. You could have switched the cases. Didn't his co-worker say he stayed at his office the whole time? Where'd he swap the cases? Where'd the swap case go? More importantly, you're not thinking about the important parts. Remember the time frame. Herc went to the restroom after Percy entered the floor. He couldn't have counted on Herc leaving like that. The frame's too tight. You can't use that as evidence. After all, Percy couldn't have counted on Herc showing up in that room in the first place. Sounds to me like it was just a whim. So if you're factoring in bad luck for the thief, you can also factor in good luck. It just balances it out. I don't think it works like that. At any rate, I think we can safely rule Herc out. Our culprit would reduce the suspect pool like that. Seems like a really dumb idea to me. So what, the culprit's Data by default? I mean, she did leave the building, she could have easily dumped the thing while she was gone. But how'd she get past the security detail? I don't know, that's the whole problem with this thing. This whole mess is too confusing for me. Are we sure the laptop even left? Fancy place like this, I wouldn't be surprised if there were like super secret hidey holes for stashing secrets. Somebody could have just hidden the laptop there. To what end? I don't know, to cause a stir? I don't see how that helps anyone. See, some people just want to watch the world burn, and there's nothing ordinary folks like you or me can do about that. Wait, say that again. I don't see how that helps anyone. You don't need to see it, just do it. It'll cause a stir? Before that. You've lost me, Laverna. I'll be honest, I don't remember that far back. Super secret hidey hole? Yes, thank you, human stenographer. Stenographers are already human. Hence, human stenographer. Anyway, Eureka! I rushed over to the other side of the room. There I grabbed a hold of the cabinet. I began to yank off the drawers. Hey, well, what on earth are you doing? That's mahogany. That cabinet is priceless. The only thing that is priceless is the truth. Besides, this cabinet's the type where you can slide the drawers off. That's correct. How do you know that? Because the culprit had to place them back after storing this. Triumphantly, I reached forwards and grabbed the computer from the back of the dresser. I displayed it with a grand smile. What's the... Lav? Whoa, hey, what's that doing there? Lav, how did you find this? The drawers jutting out like this struck me as odd from the moment I walked into this room. However, when you spoke of hidey holes, I realized that it was no design choice. That was the metaphorical telltale heart our culprit had left under the floorboards. Or in this case, behind the drawers. Still, to hide a computer in a place like this, I didn't think that was possible. It's actually only a semi-common hiding spot. Plenty of closets are built like this, with a bit of wiggle room behind the drawers. Sort of like a false bottom. Yeah, except in this case, a false bottom is often unintentional. I'm surprised, Art. I wouldn't have taken you for a man who knew terms like that. Ah, well, you know, if your brother wants to be a magician for a few years, you end up picking up a few things along the way. Really? Polly never did strike me as the magical type. Art looked confused. Polly, your younger brother. You just said he wanted to be a magician. Oh, right, yes. He, never had the right stage presence for it. Another time, I set the laptop on the table and opened it. When I opened it, the insides were stained with coffee. It stayed firmly turned off as I pressed buttons. Aha! Just as I suspected. You did? I think the case of events here is painfully simple. The culprit made their move when Herc went to the restroom. He didn't remember drinking all his coffee. I think he was correct. The culprit opened the computer, did their dastardly deed, and then poured the coffee all over the laptop, rendering it useless. Then they decided to dispose of the corpse in this very room. And they must have thought of the old drawer trick. Perhaps they even had even scoped that out in advance. And then they left. Simple as that. Amazing. No, not amazing. Not simple as that. What's the point? I mean, if they're trying to steal data off the laptop, it feels like the thief failed. I clicked my tongue. Oh, poor naive Seth. This is the modern era. There's more than one way to transport data. Put it on a thumb drive and then Herc can carry it out in his mouth because he doesn't have to put his head through it. The thief likely opened the laptop and transferred all the relevant data to an easy to conceal flash drive. With that, no need for the actual computer. Oh, maybe so, but in that case, why bother hiding the computer? If the culprit made it look like the actual computer was gone, that would limit how it could have been smuggled out of the building and narrow suspects. It would throw off the investigation, leading us to make bad assumptions like the ones we've been making. Well, why make it a case at all? And they've just left the laptop in the drawer and nobody had been any the wiser about the robbery? Once Art came and found the laptop covered in coffee, the fact that it had been tampered with would already become obvious. Why throw coffee on it then? That I couldn't answer. It was a critical question. That's why this whole thing became an incident. But despite how much I didn't have a clue, to my surprise, it was Art that spoke up. I have an idea. The thief must have triggered the Melusine software security. Then realizing we had no clue what that meant, he took a second to explain. Basically, it's something on the laptop that will keep a log of actions, instead of a secondary security system. At this point, surely it's tertiary. Perhaps. Regardless, if they became wise to that, they'd realize that whatever the laptop was next checked, they'd be able to tell it was altered. At that point, they'd probably already suspect the theft. So why not make it look like a physical job? As Laverna wisely pointed out, it would thoroughly mislead us. Alright, so that means we're not looking for somebody who stole a laptop, we're looking for somebody who stole a flash drive. That changes things. Wait, what about that data lady? She had the book, right? You can hide a flash drive in a book. Didn't Seth say you flipped through that? In my opinion, the one that suddenly got more suspicious is Herc. Obviously. He said to try and prove that he fit the laptop in his mouth. Well, he might not be able to fit a laptop in his mouth, but I think a flash drive he could muster. Really? You think he could carry a conversation with a flash drive in his mouth? Did he have a conversation? And whatever, even if he did say that you could talk and hide a flash drive. Honestly, with this I'm not sure we can even limit the suspects to those three anymore. I mean, Laverna here just proved that there are still possible hiding spots left to be discovered. And I think it's a lot easier to hide a flash drive than a laptop, so the possibility someone stored it away for later has risen a lot. Oh man, what are all these? Oh, that's right, I didn't figure out this one last time I hit the skip button by accident. The culprit broke the laptop. Okay, I don't know what clicking on shit means. Oh, it's from start to finish, is it? So, the culprit downloaded the data on a USB. Smuggled it out the window. I don't know what's happening. I still don't understand how this works, you know? The culprit broke the laptop? It's going good-doing, so... Because, or, and, so. The culprit broke the laptop because... the culprit wanted to frame someone? I see, I kind of see how this works now. So... the culprit... and, sorry. Oh man, we have to start over? The culprit broke the... so we have to go, the culprit broke the laptop, we have to go in order. So where does it go? The culprit broke the laptop, the culprit wanted to frame someone, the culprit noticed the digital security system, and the culprit wanted to frame someone. Because the culprit noticed the digital security system. No? So... they downloaded the data on a USB, or the culprit smuggled it out the window? I don't fucking know. I don't really understand how this works, but I think I'm getting the idea. We've never actually done this one before, because I accidentally skipped it last time. Yeah, obviously that's not right, but I think I understand how it works now. So we can pick whichever one of these we want to start with. No, we can't. We have to start with the culprit broke the laptop. We don't have a choice on that one. Because the culprit wanted to frame someone. So I can't change this one now. But the next ones we can. Or the culprit noticed the security system. So they downloaded the data on a USB and smuggled it out the window. We'll figure it out eventually. And that makes sense, right? That train of thought works. Good. I walked over to the window and chuckled. Oh, you guys. You never truly can see the larger picture. I still don't understand why sometimes we can pick the red words and sometimes we can't. I don't know. Why wait when there's a perfectly good escape hatch right here? I knock on the glass gently. Miss Laverna, I did already speak about the security system, did I not? You did. However, I'm afraid your system isn't quite as secure as you may believe, Mr. Deismer. You see, I believe I can raise the window about half an inch before the sensors go off. They may not be much, but with the many ways you can store technology nowadays, I'm sure you could find something to fit through that crack. While I was talking, Baldera walked over beside me. But hold on a second, Lav, isn't there a problem here? Look down below. There's this big water feature right on the side of the building. And if you drop something down there, won't it get soaked? I don't think you can get enough of momentum through that small crack to send a flash drive past the water feature. I think the fall might also be a bit of an issue. So then don't drop the flash drive, don't have the flash drive fall into the water. You keep saying these things without explaining yourself. Baldera, you remember the waiting room on the first floor? How lovely it was. Baldera's face sparkled with recognition. I was right next to the water feature. By Jove, I think she's got it. I propose this was a two-person job. One was somebody with an access to this restricted floor, though I can't say who. As far as I can see it, anybody who was present when Herc went to the restroom, as well as Herc himself, were all possible suspects. Though if I were to guess, after the gambit, the thief pulled. I imagine they tried to cover their image by not leaving the floor. Whoever it is, they conspired with a partner who played the part of a visitor and went to that waiting lobby. The two communicated via text, and at the right time, the visitor opened the waiting lobby's window and caught the falling flash drive. And just like that, the Olympo heist is complete. And with this, I gave a large bow. To my surprise, it was Art who first began with some golf claps. My, I must admit, Miss Laverna, it appears I judged you too harshly. I'm a big enough man to admit when I'm misguided. It appears you are, in fact, quite competent, eccentricities aside. I only try my best. So hold on, shouldn't we go to the front desk right now? Like maybe we can't figure out who the culprit from the people on this floor, but we've got a whole second avenue to pursue. Don't waste the front desk's time. I've got a better idea. Come follow me. Art left the room and followed him, and we followed him. He made his way to his office. There he pulled up his laptop and began furiously typing. Finally, he pushed the laptop in the direction of Baldera. There you go, look away. I don't mind if I do. With a smirk, Baldera took a seat and began going to work. I could see from this angle that it had some sort of security footage. So, Mr. Deismer, you think you're going to get a lead with that? To be honest, I somewhat doubt it. I mean, so many people come in every day. That waiting lobby has dozens upon dozens of visitors on a daily basis. And unfortunately, We don't have an angle that actually showcases the window, where we could see someone try and catch that flash drive. But you know, I had the technology. I guess I felt this was a chance to try and get some use out of it. Lav? Valdera's tone was extremely hesitant. Yes? What's this about? Valdera pointed to a screen with a worried look on her face. I leaned in closer, then recoiled. What the? How the hell was I seeing this? Meanwhile, Ark continued rambling. You see, this Melusine security system is really thorough. For instance, there are decoy security cameras, and there are a bunch of hidden real ones. This one, for instance, is in a picture hanging on the wall in the waiting lobby. The screen. There was a figure wearing a dark green hoodie and sunglasses. But their face, it was unmistakable. It was mine. While I'd been looking at this, Seth also came to see what was going on. After seeing the screen, he looked to me and spoke in a deadly serious voice. Laverna, what is this? I sighed. I really didn't want to go here. I suppose my twin sister, as you were called. Twins? Really? Boo, what a hack. Though I do appreciate the irony of having the detective character break Knox's 10th. Still, you hate to see a twin in a work of mystery. At this point, I'm tempted to write off every modern tale involving a twin as trash, context be damned. Because at this point, it's just a sign of laziness, a crutch if anything. Oh well, not much we can do. After all, these are real events, not just a script. Believe me, I'd admit this if it had not actually happened, and even now I'm still tempted. At the very least, I'm grateful that it wasn't used for a twist. Now that would be bullshit. But learning about it now, it's like, okay, there's a twin. We know that. That's logged. Hey, there was more to that scene than just the last few moments, wasn't there? Sorry, that twin reveal completely knocked off my train of thought. Well, in my defense, it's not like the other stuff was all that interesting. Corporate espionage, whoop-de-doo. If I was discussing mystery rules, Van Dyne's 7th applies pretty keenly right about now, I think. If it's not a murder, I don't give a shit. I kind of doubt the stolen USB is going to have any real effect on things. Why couldn't we do more with the cock robin killings? Oh, speaking of, did you catch the start of that scene? We got an answer to our bet. Autopsies reveal that Max died roughly when the party was getting started. Or in other words, way before Athen apparently died. Now I guess this isn't like airtight. Maybe the autopsy's faked. Maybe Athen died earlier when the person at the party was a body double. Maybe some third weird shit. Now for now I'm just going to call it. And if anything else comes up, I'll reverse the bet. For now though, I suppose you've won the bet. Good on you. You're a natural detective. Anyways, I could talk more about the scene I guess. But I'm not particularly inclined to, and I never wanted our chats to feel like a drag. So then, I guess I'll be out of your hair. Whew, that was a long one, but we're going to wrap this one up here before we go on. We didn't get another key, so we're just going to have to keep working our way through the detective one, I guess. Until we get ourselves a nice silver key for Val's, or a nice green key, whatever that is, for Mercury. Till then, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.